And then, so I'll do item 1 and 2, and then you guys will be. So I'll be doing this one and this one pretty much, and then you'll be doing these guys, the abatement and
Yeah,
the
Heidi will do the debate.
abatement, and then,
Live and ready when you want to.
okay. This is Randy Sweet with the Seldovia Planning Commission, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 6:08. And if the clerk could take the roll.
Commissioner Ryan? Here. Commissioner Forsberg?
Here.
Commissioner Blanchard is not in attendance yet. Commissioner Kroll?
Here.
And Commissioner Sweet.
Here.
We have 4 members present, Madam Chair.
And we have a quorum, so we can proceed. Is that correct?
Correct. Commissioner Blanchard said she will be signing on in a few minutes.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion to that effect?
Move to approve the agenda.
Could I have a second?
I'll go ahead and second it.
And if the clerk can take the roll.
Here for approval of the agenda, Commissioner Ryan? Approve. Commissioner Forsberg?
Approve.
And Commissioner Kroll?
Approved.
And Commissioner Sweet.
Approved.
For all yes votes, we have 4 yes votes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The agenda is approved. And the next item is approval of minutes. Could I have a motion to that effect?
And I will note that there are 2 different minutes from the August 14th and the November 20th meeting in the packet.
Do they need to be approved separately?
No.
Okay.
I just wanted everybody to know that.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
And if the clerk could take a roll.
Commissioner Ryan?
Yes.
Commissioner Forsberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Kroll?
Yes.
And Commissioner Sweet?
Yes.
We have 4 yes, Madam Chair.
So the minutes of the August 14th, 2024 and the November 20th, 2024 meetings have been approved. Are there any public comments regarding items not on the agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
And we have no public hearings prior notice for this meeting,
Correct.
and we have no consideration of site plans for this meeting.
Correct.
And so that takes us to the commission business. And the first item is the reconsideration of application to rezone waterfront resub number 1, lots 2 through 4, block 13, per 18.97.010B7, best interest of the public. So this is just to recap that last time we just determined we should postpone decision on this item to develop more information so that we could provide information back to the city council to correct the deficiency in that item in the application that the city council noted. And so if you go to the, I think it's page 12 of your packet, what I will do is just briefly go through, I will fairly quickly go through the the packet that we have for a draft letter. And what I would ask you to do is to take notes in terms of anything that catches your eye. If you think something needs to be adjusted, if you could flag that for yourself, and at the end of going through it, then we can pick up those items and talk about them, and then the staff can adjust that before submitting the letter to the city council. Does anybody have any questions about that, or does that seem like a pretty good way to go forward? Okay, so in order that, as I said, the city council had identified that the referring to the public interest was not fully addressed by the application or by the Seldovia Planning Commission. And so they had found that to be lacking. And so in order to make sure that all of the information was complete in the application, is what we want to do is to be sure that anybody applying for a rezoning has everything done according to the requirements so that they can get the best chance of getting their application heard and successful. Obviously, the city council can either give it or not, but we don't want the lack of information to be a factor in a denial. So what I did was what was done here in this package is that information was evaluated in terms of what public interest is. We don't define it in our own regulations, but there's some definitions that are out there that are used. And so basically that's defined as anything affecting the well-being, the rights, health, or finances of the public at large. And then it can also, another sort of definition that kind of broadens that is about transparency and accountability to make sure that to promote the public understanding and safeguard the democratic processes, good decision-making by leaders, making sure that we're upholding standards of integrity, ensuring justice and fair treatment for all, and securing the best use of public resources and ensuring fair commercial competition in a mixed economy. So that's the reason for kind of the things that we're trying to make sure that we meet. So when we're looking at this matter in general, one of the things that happened, and it's been 60 years now, but the earthquake and tsunami that occurred in Seldovia had a profound effect, not only on the physical aspects of Seldovia, but on the economic aspects. And so it caused the ground to sink. It caused what was the commercial business district basically to be flooded and affected the built environment. That ended up being removed, and urban renewal came in and actually lifted the topography so that the town was not in danger of being flooded. At the same time, what happened was that the road system was connected up to Homer, and the flood had an impact on the canneries in Seldovia. So Seldovia's role as a regional center and having a fairly good economic driver from the canneries, those two things got impacted. when urban renewal came in, what they did is they took a part of the town, and that became a project that the Alaska State Housing Authority took on. And while they had control of the project, they also had control over the zoning, and so they had say on that. One of the things that happened during that time is that they did not reserve the port area, the where the properties meet the harbor. They did not take that particular piece of land for public use. So uh, that area um, of those properties are fully owned by the property owners. There's been a fair amount of conversation about uh, it's been marine commercial, it's been commercial marine, and then it went into the commercial business district. So uh, there was some review of the documents from ASHA, or the Alaska State Housing Authority, and City of Seldovia, and where we are today. And so commercial marine and marine commercial are a part of that is a legacy part of the commercial business district. One of the things about public interest, we have public interest that was defined in 2013, 2014, when the comprehensive plan was put together. In that plan, there was what appears to be a proposal to change the zoning to a more streamlined uh, way of zoning Seldovia. In the plan, there is another graphic that is from the 1980 comprehensive plan. And so there's a graphic that says planned use, but that was from 1980. And then there is the preferred use. And we have looked at that in other periods of time, but that was so that was done in 2014. And so there was a number of efforts in that. There were several months of effort that asked for public input on that plan. So there was public participation and public interest from that particular point in time. On page 4, you'll see that there are dates where from July 15th, 2013 to February 2014, it was endorsed, and the public participated, the community did. Then it was endorsed by the Planning Commission of that era on March 16th, 2014. It was approved by the City Council of that era on May 14th, 2014, and by the Kenai Peninsula Borough on June 9th, 2014. And this is where this plan was focusing the town center between Airport Road or Airport Avenue and Iliamna Street. So that's where that all came from. And I guess one of the things that has come clear is that the city did not pursue that particular aspect of the comprehensive plan. So we know that because we have today's zoning, and that preferred use was documented and agreed to in the 2014 comprehensive plan, but that did not happen. So, so one of the things that in this conversation about rezoning, one of the things that has come apparent in reviewing this is that, you know, we have economic conditions that are such that our ability to generate more retail business is constrained by the number of people that we have in our community. It seems like the populations between the city of Seldovia and the Seldovia village overall have been about 400 people for several decades. So that it just kind of struck me as, okay, so that's something that really does impact us because we're not able to grow more businesses necessarily if we have a fairly static population and we have a spike in demand over the summer, but that does not enable businesses to operate fully throughout the year because a business couldn't break even. Some businesses, we do have a few businesses, few restaurant businesses, but we do have that as part of our economic picture. So one of the things that I think it's been touched on in the subcommittee and otherwise, but we have, we've talked about incentives. And so right now the city of Seldovia isn't able to give financial incentives because we're just coming out after an 8-year period of not being solvent, meaning we are solvent currently, and on top of that, we are working on repairing infrastructure. Some of the buildings need repairs and have those done. And some of them are with our infrastructure in terms of our water treatment plant and our lift station. So we have things that have to be done. And so the first thing that the city has to do is make sure that the life support systems are functioning so that businesses can operate and people can live with the life support systems. And what is contained in here is some details about, like, for example, the restaurants. There are some restaurants that are able to there are 2 restaurants in the commercial business district and 2 other food service businesses outside of the commercial business district that are operating. But we have had businesses try to operate other restaurants, and those have decided to some have decided to go to a seasonal, and another restaurant decided to close. But so those are part of the factors in our environment, in our economic environment. So kind of looking at what we can't do is we can't give financial incentives. We're kind of topped out right now in terms of what businesses can operate. We have had temporary housing expansion, in that we've had a lodge added to our housing, and one of the applicants is currently working on getting their building set up for temporary housing. So if one way that Seldovia can help businesses is to allow flexibility. And so that change in zoning would give property owners flexibility. The entire verbiage of item 7 had a question, and this I've kind of gotten us to page 21 of your packet. And so the other, besides public interest, the it asks about the cumulative effect of similar development on property within and in the vicinity. And so in this case, this change is one of classification. There's no physical development. And I guess the important part, and this was something that people were concerned about in the public testimony, is that if this change goes through, then there will no longer that property will no longer have to have a commercial purpose. And so that is of concern to some of the community. And then the other part of that item 7 is including without limitation effects on the environment, transportation, public service and facilities, and land use patterns. So we don't define these terms, that it just says that. And so these are sort of plain language use of those terms, but overall, because there's no change in, there's no physical changes currently planned, it would have no current impact on either environment, transportation, public services. The only public services that are provided in this area right now is the pavilion, and so that, again, it does not appear that it would be affected. And the land use patterns, since it's a classification change to the same category as the waterfront commercial that's right next to it, it would not have a material change. Then does anybody have any questions? That's a lot of information thus far. Does that track with what we have been talking about? Is there any questions or feedback at this point?
Madam Chair, if I could just interrupt for a moment. Commissioner Blanchard will not be joining us tonight.
Okay.
I have a comment. This is Allison.
Go ahead, Allison.
I agree. You talk about the traffic not necessarily being affected by a change in zoning. And I guess it's hard to really say that. I guess I feel like it would be affected if the city enforces the need to have commercial uses on those properties, which it hasn't been in doing, then there would be an increase in traffic down on that end of Main Street. And it could cost a lot of money to deal with that. And it's just, I've really experienced that myself over this last summer. The new business that is operating out of, what's it called?
Salmonberry.
Salmonberry. Yeah, that Salmonberry. I think, that was the only new thing, but yet every time I went down there in the middle of the day, I couldn't find a place to park there. And, I guess I can see that if there was additional businesses, that would just multiply that issue. So that's my only comment.
Okay, thank you. So, and I guess, so if so what I'm hearing you say is retaining the current category, and if somebody were to expand into a retail operation, then there could be a parking and other impact is what I'm hearing you say. Is that correct?
I have to unmute. Yes, yes, that's correct. Although I think beyond just retail, a housing, resident, whatever we call it, a lodging kind of business would also generate more traffic.
Okay, thank you. Then the remainder of the package has it has the comparison of the code and what might be there's some comments on here that have to do with the differences. So just if we're managing a change from commercial business to waterfront commercial, I think there are some changes that would need to be addressed. As going through this as well, it seems like there may be an opportunity to update some definitions in terms of permitted use, conditional use, secondary use, and not permitted. The code tends to refer back to the land use table, but there may be an opportunity to further explain each of those categories. That would be helpful. When comparing the land uses between commercial business district and waterfront commercial, and this is on page 20, or excuse me, 31 of your packet. There are a number of land uses that are common. So that just gives a way to look at this to say a lot wouldn't change. And then, so that's in, and that takes us through to page 23, or excuse me, page 34 of your packet. And that identifies land use that is unique. So commercial business has one type of land use, and waterfront commercial has a different type of land use. And so what we did was look at this from the standpoint of, if you're going from commercial, how is that when you go to waterfront commercial, does that increase flexibility or decrease flexibility? And in all but a few cases, it increases flexibility for the property owner. So that takes us through the package. So what we're doing is we're not asking the council necessarily to change their mind. We're asking them to reconsider with this additional information so that they can make their decision based on a complete package. And so hopefully this will help them have more information to make their decision. And so it's to help them. And then if they do close, if they say, yes, we've looked at the information and we consider this closed. And then we're also asking them to give us a reason for their decision so that it's clear to us and the public. And the reason for that is so that in the future, if something comes up, then we can use that information in our decision making. So I would ask if there is any feedback. Are there any changes that you would suggest? Or is this appropriate now for us to vote on a motion to send a motion to the city council for reconsideration?
Chair Sweet, just for a inquiry, so would you send this memorandum with that motion?
Yes.
The one thing I would say then, of course, is updating the memorandum, so it's addressed to the council. And then I would suggest filling out that subject request for consideration, as well as the second part, which is the requesting the additional feedback from the council. And in a matter of facts and findings regarding their determination. And then providing a summary at the beginning, or sorry, providing what that consideration is at the beginning. So that's straightforward. And then a summary of what your guys' process was to get there. So just adding on those two items, addressing it to them, making the subject complete, and then providing that again below with additional information if needed as a this is the consideration, and then the consideration for council, with that information, summary for the process that we've just gone through now, and then the rest of the memo, if that makes sense, just as a formatting
And
as it's going to them.
okay. And so can we say that to get this to a motion, can we say to have the motion to have this go to the city council with the staff making recommended changes? Or
Yes, and maybe. That sounds appropriate, but you could say with the staff making recommended changes to be approved or along with the chair. It'd be good to have your feedback before it goes.
okay. And so right now we're just in an item discussion. So I guess before I call for the motion, is there any feedback from the commissioners before we proceed to a motion? Or should I make the motion? Should we make? And from the public?
Looks like
Okay.
Commissioner Ryan has her hand up.
Commissioner Ryan?
Yeah, I guess when Heidi said to summarize this a little bit to the council, it's like there's so much information in the memorandum you have, which is great to have all that background. But the question they're asking is, what is in the public's best interest isn't that the best interest of the public making this rezoning? And can we be really clear on that? That the rezoning either does provide something that's in the public interest or does not? Isn't that what they're making the decision about? Or is that in there? And then it's just so much information that I kind of lost it.
Through the chair, if you don't mind, as a suggestion, I made a note of that as well. I was thinking in that summary of your guys' process, you can pull out that criteria 7, the full statement, and then even potentially the findings and pull them up.
Okay, so basically what I'm hearing you say is to have an executive summary of the work so that they're clear on what was found and provide that as a part of the memo.
Right, like at the beginning, that's kind of a good placeholder,
Okay.
and they can go through and see the detail.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, there is the comment that was submitted by one of the applicants, by Miss Martin, and that's on page 43. Would that be something you would want to send with? Yeah.
Yes, and
I just wanted to bring the commissioner's attention to that because I don't think we've
Thank you.
discussed it yet.
So
That's on page 43. of the
what-
packet.
what I'll do is I'll just take a minute and I'll take a moment and just give the commissioners a chance to read that, read the read the response by the applicant. So if you want to go to page 43 of your package and read the response by Ms. Martin. If you go to page 43, that's the. Is everybody okay with, has everybody had a chance to read it? If you haven't, let me know. Otherwise, we'll proceed. So the letter will be added to the package, and there is one issue that I'd like to just address publicly. We've talked about it before, but and it has to do with Ms. Martin's statement that her application was changed, and it actually was not changed. When the commission voted on on the recommendation to approve to approve the zoning, that was done, and at the same time there was a request to determine if it was possible to add an easement to it. So it was done as a motion that was separate from the application. So at no time was the application changed, but there was a request for information. And as I believe I had talked with the commissioners about the fact that the attorney had recommended not to mix the matter of the easement in with rezoning, that would not be a wise thing to do. So the matter dropped at that point. So the recommendation to the city council went without any additional information, or the easement matter was not part of that, just because of the advice that we had gotten. So any questions before we go on to the motion? Yes,
It's
Commissioner.
Allison.
Go ahead, Allison, and then I'll get Commissioner Forsberg.
Okay, I was looking back at the reasons that you stated on that. I kind of keep going back and forth. Okay. Public interest can take many forms. For example, there's a public interest in transparency and accountability to promote public understanding. That very first one. In my mind, doing this zoning change speaks right to that first bullet point, to promote public understanding. We have this situation that has been allowed to develop as a residential area primarily, without being enforced for their commercial business use of that area. And so now it's kind of the norm. That's what's kind of expected. And it's confusing for people to have the zoning and have it not enforced, and say, now what is going on here? Do we need zoning? It's not really being used in the way that it's supposed to be. So it seems like changing it would go around to promoting public understanding and accountability and transparency and all that other stuff, instead of having this dual thing going on. We have a zoning, but we're not enforcing it. So I think it would straighten that out. Either it should be enforced or it should be changed. That's all.
So I think did you want to speak on that or no?
I can just provide a point of clarification. It's not necessarily a matter of not enforcing. There are active businesses in that area, actually, but it's because, and it mentions that in the findings provided in this memo from the chair, that because they're not retail facing, there's some confusion on what those businesses are. And then one is in development. So the city does coordinate and discuss with property owners in that district based on what their uses are. And when those properties are sold, it's depending on who they're going through as a realtor, but that's generally clarified, and they know that that's the intent of the property that they're buying. In fact, these applicants have said that on the record. So I do agree that it is confusing, and that there's potential for some education process, but I would also just say for the record that there are businesses occurring. They just might not be in the form that people think of when they think of business. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they're out of compliance. It's just not what people are used to seeing.
Thank you.
She's got her hand up. Go ahead. Oh, did you, Commissioner Ryan, did you have any additional comments?
No, I just said thank you, and that
Okay,
clarifies things. Thank you.
that one of the things that this is Randy Sweet, one of the things that has come up in the public comment is that the public, some members of the public feel frustrated because I believe they have that expectation of a retail publicly accessible business in the port area in particular. And they're frustrated because they don't have access to that area. And so that has created, that is, there is frustration about that. And technically and by the code that we have, it does not require a retail business in those properties. So I think, that's something to communicate when we have the opportunity to. And it appears even in the 2014 comprehensive plan where they have made comments. I think there was, that was an issue as well. So it's like it's a continuing source of frustration. I mean, and we can be technically correct with the code, but it is just to acknowledge that people are frustrated with it. And so they have stated that. So I guess we can go ahead and make a motion to provide sorry, we would like the city council to reconsider with an executive summary and the packet.
Did Commissioner Forsberg have a comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Turn your
Thank
mic
you.
on, Roger.
A lot of it got covered, but like I said, when these people bought the properties, and they were told they were commercial, I mean, there's hardships and all kinds of stuff you could probably, if you're planning on doing it and it ain't getting done, or you're getting sick or whatever, definitely should probably be reminded maybe yearly that they are out of compliance, and try to push them a little bit anyway, as far as starting a business up.
And so, and I think one of the things that it appears at this point in time is two of the property owners are in compliance and one is in the process of remodeling for a business. So, but it is not necessarily apparent to the public at large, I think, that people are in compliance. So that's kind of the dilemma, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
And so
This is Allison again. What are those businesses? Like, is it a home occupation, which is not allowed in the commercial business district, right?
I'd like to recognize the city manager.
Yes, thank you. So through the chair, so there is one that is a business consumer or a business personal service. They provide computer repair services is what their business application is. As well as they manage a nightly rental business. So office use and then business consumer. One is working towards nightly lodging. And then the other one is in a little bit of a gray area because it is operating or could be considered storage for a different business. So maybe not technically in compliance, but related to another business. So they do all have business purposes attached to them. And we do have those conversations for instance, the one that's working towards a business we've had regular conversations, verbal conversations with them about the progress and the need to be compliant. So that has been something that has occurred. If I didn't clarify, I don't know if I said that business, did I say that business consumer service was a computer repair service? Yeah.
And that is a sanctioned type of business that can be in the commercial business district?
It's a business service.
Right. I'm
And
not.
it is permitted, yes.
Right. I'm not asking because I have I just wanted to clarify. So the two, one property owner is in compliance. Another property owner is
Business adjacent.
and so that's supporting another business. And do they use it as a place for lodging periodically?
They used to. Right now they sell bulk products out of it. So you can purchase products from the retail facility and then go up and grab your dirt or bulk products from that facility.
Okay. And then the other property owner is in the process of developing their property for a nightly rental. And in the way that we do our business, are there milestones that property owners have to meet, or is it just how does that happen?
That's not clear.
Okay, so in other words, we in our code don't have anything that is specific in terms of once somebody buys a piece of property, what they need to do by when they're operating a business.
Correct.
Okay. I'd like to recognize a member of the public.
Thank you. This is Ecola. Who makes that decision? If you wanted to add it to your code, does that go to city council or is that something that planning and zoning takes part in?
I think it would be an iterative process. I mean, it could start here in the planning and zoning and we would have a discussion with the public. I would think we would do a public hearing just to make sure people had an opportunity to participate, and then draft an ordinance. If there was, I guess we'd see if there was a level of consensus to that, and then send it and then transmit it, talk about it, have a motion, and then if it passes, then send it to the city council for their review and approval. So I guess what I'm saying is we would follow our regular process for developing a change to the code.
Thank you.
So I have a question of the commissioners. Are you comfortable with this information being developed and sent forward? Assuming we have a motion and it passes, are you comfortable with the city manager and staff and me to work on that and send it over to the city council, or would you prefer that all be drafted first and then have your review and approval before sending it over to the city council? I just want to make sure that everybody's okay with whatever, and I don't have I really want to make sure that the process is transparent and works for everybody before we take action. You know, on the one hand, we can, we can end the matter in terms of our involvement with it by doing something that is, consolidates everything. Or if things aren't at a point where that's comfortable, then we can wait and bring it back in January. So I'm looking for feedback on how to approach this in a way that is most helpful to you.
That table you got written out here, everything looks pretty clear cut, so I'd say just give city council the information. And let them do it. Right.
And Commissioner Kroll, do you have any feedback? Commissioner Ryan?
I guess we're talking about doing an executive summary and changing some of what is being presented. So I think maybe we should review it
Okay.
again. Yeah.
All right. So then I will just, so then what we'll do is we'll work on it and bring it back to the commission in January and go from there. So at this point, we don't have to do any motions. We can just, I believe, are we, because we're still in the postponement place. So we can, we'll do that and then make sure that everybody's in agreement with what gets sent over. Thank you. Thank you for your patience and your feedback. The next item is the commercial business district review and action on recommendations. Is the PowerPoint in the
Yeah, it's a PowerPoint is in the packet. It's
okay. PowerPoint is in the packet and is it available for us to use or
It starts on page 89 and Heidi's going to bring it up on the screen if that's
okay.
preferable for you as well.
Yeah, if we can have that,
I'll just give
that would be
Get
helpful.
that set up.
So when we started out, we had this the PowerPoint tool to just kind of give us a way to see kind of an overview of where we're at. And so we had our 31 recommendations, and then we had some of our so this is the first page, and then the second page is the recommendations. And so there were 31 recommendations that were consensus. And then we had 2 non-consensus items, and then we had a proposal for the boardwalk. So so that's on the recommendations are on page 2. And so that's what we ended up with. And so we have been working diligently on the recommendations. And so on page 3 is a page of the recommendations that have been worked on. And so the items that are in black that are in a bold are ones that we have updated, and the other ones are yet to be completed. So that just gives you, I think Allison went, I think a while back, you had said it would be helpful to kind of get reoriented to where we were, so that we kind of had an overview of what we'd done and what we needed to do. So this is trying to address that. And then if we go to the next one, it just continues the items that we are going to be working on. So any questions or comments on the on where we're at with the just the overall picture of updating the code? You have been working, there's a lot of work that you've done to get us to this place, so just appreciate all the effort.
And just to clarify, Madam Chair, the ones that are in bold with the X's are the ones that we've dealt with and been incorporated. Is that
Correct.
Correct.
And the other ones are yet to be completed. And then just going on to page 5. We obviously the rezoning has taken up a good bit of our time. And so the commission is familiar with that. And there were some other parts, non-consensus items that were not taken up because of that fact. And we had a proposal on the boardwalk, the updated or the possibility of having a new boardwalk is in the capital improvement plan. And so, I guess the city manager want to talk a little bit about the grant proposal that went in.
Sure, Madam Chair. So the city of Seldovia, in partnership with the Seldovia Chamber of Commerce, recently submitted a grant application for a community change grant with 6 components. And one of the components was to implement a boardwalk along the harbor waterfront. So we'll wait to hear back from that. Otherwise, like you said, it is in the capital improvement plan. So it is something that the city council would like to pursue. There was discussion about potentially shortening it and just pursuing it for the waterfront in front of public land. But the city council was in favor and support of continuing to try to pursue it for the whole distance of the harbor, as long as property owners are agreeable.
Thank you, city manager. And then I just summarized where the meetings that we've had thus far. And so any feedback from the commissioners on our work to this point? Okay. So, let's see, I think the city clerk has provided because the current updated code is provided in terms
Yeah.
of our work we have. So we kind of had our snapshot of the work in progress, and then starting on page 97.
Yeah. So
Is that correct?
yeah, through the chair, starting on page 97 is the draft ordinance with the updates that we've been working on, just kind of in draft form, so we can start going from there, so everybody can see kind of visually what we've been working on. It's a 3-part ordinance, and it is quite long because it is repealing and reenacting the land use table. But what is being added is in bold and underline, and the strike through is going to be deleted. So I'll just go through kind of the highlights. We're going to add the definition for bed and breakfast. And then the definition for business was the Houston one that was voted on at the 2 meetings ago. And the business consumer services, personal services, specific office, professional office, commercial recreation, entertainment uses, and retail business are all now subcategories of that business. Cabin rentals, the definition has been removed, and it's also been removed from the land use table. Commercial recreation and entertainment use were moved under the business thing, but they actually do have different uses in different districts. So did want to get some feedback on that tonight as well. We can go through that. The home occupation definition shortened. Hostel remains in there as a separate thing. The lodge definition was removed. And there was added a definition for occupancy. Moving to page 108, you'll see some of like the definitions for retail business and other things are removed because they were put under the business definition. And then on page 108, I took a stab at the short-term accommodation definition. So if the commissioners want to look that over and provide any feedback. Then you'll see on page 110, chapter 1852, commercial business has been changed to central business. And the shortened CM would become CB, just keep it clear. And then if you see on page 111, the purpose statement has also been edited to be mostly with what Ms. Collier's statement was provided during the subcommittee, and just reworded a little bit. So if you could get feedback on that at some point as well, maybe not tonight, but if anybody has any additional ideas for language that might change that. And then starting on page 112, you'll see the current land use table is going to be repealed and reenacted. So the whole thing is, as it exists now, is struck out. But you can still see what it is now, just for your reference. And then you scroll down to page 116 is the reenacted version of it. So it would include the change to central business district, the land use type key, administrative permit required, not permitted, and not applicable as well. And then you'll see the land use table has been reordered, alphabetized. The headers have been removed for residential, commercial, and industrial. And certain things like cabin rentals have been removed. And then I'm not sure if you can see it in your copies because they are black and white, but on page 117, I did want to come back to I left commercial recreation and entertainment uses in the land use table for now, because if you'll notice, they're not permitted in the residential district, whereas businesses are also maybe not permitted there. So I just wanted to bring the attention that those have maybe a different purpose in those districts, or a different permitted use in those districts. So to see if we wanted to still include them under the general business category.
So just kind of confirming what you're saying. So are you saying this is the parks and recs? Is that
the commercial recreation and entertainment use? They're in the land use table still on page 117, although they're included under the business definition, because I wasn't sure if we wanted those to remain the same. So how it's listed in the land use table now is business, unless listed separately in the land use table, has one category of permitted uses. And then there are some other businesses that are still in there that have different conditional or other uses. For example, marijuana cultivation, equipment sales, freight storage. Some of those are in here already as separate lines because they have different permitted uses in different districts. So that was the way of kind of keeping a general business definition in there, but also making sure that we still had the conditional uses for the ones that we wanted. So commercial, recreation, and entertainment uses, I left them in the table for now to see if they had any different permitted uses in districts than the regular business would.
Okay. And is that it for, are you thinking, or?
Yeah, yeah, if anybody has any guidance on that. For now, I left them in the land use table, but we can
Okay.
pull them out if that's the will of the commission.
So does anybody have any specific feedback at the moment? So I think in order to give enough time for the remaining items, so this is, I guess, kind of like a first read and kind of letting you absorb what has been done, and then we'll come back to it. We'll be continuing to work on some other of the remaining recommendations, and then we'll be continuing to update that. So by the time we're done with the process, we will have updated the code. We're trying to update it as we go along, and then at the end of it, we'll do, an overall review. So we're sure that we're kind of looking at the big picture as well as the details. And then sort of along the lines of a first read, one of the things that I'm wanted to bring to your attention is that there are, and this is on page 120. So this is in the worksheet sort of framework that we've done when we're looking at a particular issue. It seems like there are a group of types of businesses that we think might be good to have in the commercial business district, but it has to do with whether they're low impact or high impact, because we don't want noise or other things that would make it not pedestrian friendly or consumer friendly, that you want the business district to be attractive for people to be in. And so I don't know that we have many of these types of businesses in our commercial business district at this point. So as I looked at this, I was thinking, well, could we determine if a business is low impact? We could use a conditional permit to address it, or so that's one way that the code already allows, and it could be a conditional use based on the fact that it was a low impact category of these types of businesses. And then if there were, more, I guess, more industrial types of these businesses, and that perhaps that they would go in the industrial areas. But that's just for your consideration, just, because I thought if we're trying to deal with all of these bits and pieces, do we want to have like a more strategic approach to kind of look at, okay, we want businesses to feel welcome in the commercial business district, but we want to make sure that we have a balanced approach in terms of the level of impact that a business might have. And so this would be a way of looking at that and then having conversations with business owners about it. So just for your, sort of reflection as we're going along. And the next worksheet just has the topic of penalties and there's information from the code about where we talk about penalties otherwise. And so this would just be, and I think there were, the subcommittee had identified this as a recommendation to evaluate warning periods for penalties and penalties in general. So that's why this is in here. So again, just kind of for your information as a first read, and then we'll pick it up in the future. And then any comments or feedback from the commissioners before we move on to the next agenda item?
Would you like to do public comment?
Any public comments?
I think these look great. Thank you for consolidating, getting it all in there.
Thank you. And with that, I will turn this over to the city manager for the discussion on the abatement ordinance.
So thank you, Madam Chair. We started this discussion at the last meeting and three ordinances, well, four, a draft ordinance for our existing code, a really rough draft ordinance of our existing code, I should say, and three ordinances for communities in Alaska were provided by legal in order for the commission to review and see if there was one that best fit the community, or it doesn't even have to be one, it can be a combination of ordinances to right size for our community. But overall, the need is to address public nuisances. The current code, and that's in Title 8. So I provided the entire title for your guys's, and I should say, just back up a second. There is a memo on page 130 that provides just a brief summary that abatement procedures for public nuisances have been an ongoing topic in Seldovia since at least 2021. I believe it's been prior, but I didn't have the chance to backtrack that far. The Seldovia Municipal Code does include a chapter on abandoned property, and that's in Title 8 that provides abatement procedures. However, they're limited and they're more focused on abandoned vehicles. I did provide a copy of the Title 8 because I know that you guys are more familiar with Title 18 and 17. However, this does kind of fall into the realm of the Planning Commission as we talk about regulating property and property use. So Title 8 is in the code, or is in the packet starting on page 136 in its entirety, just so that you guys can have that purview if you haven't seen it before. And then 137 is chapter 806, abandoned property. So that is what legal was looking at when we talk about abatement of abandoned property or public nuisances. And they also provided a rough draft on starts on page 131, to go backwards a little bit, of how we could update chapter 806 the way it is written now, to be a little broader. It includes definitions, which we didn't have prior, and then it also includes, additional information about junk vehicles, junk vehicle parts, junk and trash declared a public nuisance. And then kind of reiterates the notice of, to the owner of the property, a violation of ordinance for the demand of removal. I did like on 133 at the top under number 3, we reference that, in other places in our code, specifically in, public health and safety, when we talk about, trash, that no person may deposit or place junk, trash, garbage, or junk vehicles or other waste upon a street or city-owned property or upon any property owned by another without the consent of the owner and for the purpose of collection. So we do refer back to that when, it becomes really important when we start talking about, being bear aware. But it's important other methods as well. And then they included an exceptions. So that was an initial start to updating that code. But like I said, they also provided examples from Houston, Wasilla, and Homer. So if you guys hopefully had a chance to look over it, and think about what it should look like for Seldovia. I did put a few considerations in the memo. If you go back to page 130, I just said next steps, review provided draft updating 806 and codes from communities provided. Consider updating Seldovia's municipal code to more clearly provide guidance and procedures for public nuisances. Considerations may include the following. So this is not an exhaustive list, but we could consider updating the chapter title to include public nuisances so that it's more inclusive than abandoned property. For instance, if you see Homer's as public nuisance abatement, Wasilla's as public nuisance, Houston's as abatement of abandoned vehicles, so they're more vehicles focused as well. So, if you want to update it to just be public nuisance abatement, or public nuisance and abandoned property, something that that makes it more a comprehensive title for when you're looking for information, that you can refer there. We can have definitions to similar to what is provided in the rough draft from legal, since we don't have existing definitions, and could also consider including definitions for abandon and abandonment, and updating the junk vehicle definition, similar to what the Wasilla code provides. That's just a little bit more comprehensive. And then number 3, consider defining a public nuisance and public nuisance regulation by the city. For instance, if you look at Wasilla's, it seemed like that was kind of a friendly code to be able to follow through. And then last one, provide public nuisance abatement procedures, remedies, and penalties, enforcement orders, and civil remedies and penalties in existing format that we have now, if that looks good to everybody, or we can update it to another format. And again, referring back to Wasilla just because of that ease of use. So looking for feedback. And of course, if you guys need more time or more information, happy to bring it back at the next meeting. This has been something that's been in the background for a long while, but hopefully hoping to make some headway here on it in the future.
So just asking commissioners for any feedback that you may have.
Abandoned property, does that mean they're not paying taxes on it anymore, or what does that mean?
So this, the draft provided by legal did not define abandon or abandonment, but if you look in Wasilla's, It defines it as abandoned or abandonment shall be defined as existing where the owner of a building or premises has by action or inaction failed to correct a serious health and or safety violation at a building or on the surrounding property. A serious health and or safety violation may be found by way of example only and without limitation where the health, safety, and welfare of the community is or may be at risk due to conditions such as, and then it lists out 5 conditions. So certainly that would be something that could be worth defining.
And what page is that on?
157. Because we don't have it in our code.
But if it's somebody is not paying their taxes, eventually it goes to a sale or something, right?
Through to a foreclosure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it speaks more specifically to, it says where a building is vacant, however, vacancy is not necessarily to be considered as a prerequisite to finding of abandonment. So there can be people in it and it still be considered abandoned where there exists a lack of maintenance of a building or grounds which actually or potentially poses a risk to the public health, safety, or welfare, where a building is not structurally sound or where the building is or its interior is otherwise unfit for healthy or safe habitation or access, where vandalism at the property has gone unrepaired, or where lack of maintenance or use of the property promotes a degradation of the surrounding community affecting the public health, safety, and welfare. Is what that's looking at. It's more about being a public nuisance than about being vacant.
Any other comments?
This is Allison. I have one.
Go
I
ahead.
guess I see on the 8.06.030, so on page 132, it just talks about city property, but up above it sounds like it's talking about private property. So I don't know. I guess I'm just confused. That one section 030 says acts prohibited, and it's just referring to city. So maybe that's why it's prohibited, because the city owns the land. I don't know. Otherwise, it's private property, right? It's both private property and city-owned property. This we're talking about.
Yes, I think that's the intent, but thank you for that feedback. Because I don't know that this is very clear, even in the draft. So anything that's provided, we can either provide back to legal, or we can work on it internally. It's open for discussion. So thank
Okay,
you.
that's all I had.
So, this is Randy. I guess from a overall standpoint, I think, one guiding principle would be to however it's determined as far as the content, but if the language in it could be as user friendly as possible, I think I would ask that it be, to the extent possible in plain English, so it's easy for people to understand and know what the requirements are and what the actions will be if the requirements aren't met. So, I guess from our agenda standpoint, then this is like initial feedback and then we'll bring it back again. As far as from the standpoint of the city manager, do you have enough feedback to create a consolidated kind of draft from the things that the commission has said and your own review, or do we need to go through it maybe again and just see if there are any additional items that we think that are important or that could help in this process. What would be the best way forward from here?
Would you like me to bring back a draft with these considerations included to be able to visualize and see it?
I think it would be helpful from my standpoint because then we have something concrete to talk about and how it flows together. And if there could be any legal review, then if we're giving you feedback, we also know where the sort of guardrails are in terms of how doing something that's helpful for the community and also meets legal requirements. I mean, I'm imagining that's an iterative process, but just that way we're kind of giving feedback in a way that's constructive.
I could send these considerations to legal and ask them to provide the draft ordinance back for review.
I think, does that meet with the council or commissioners? Allison, does that sound good to you as well?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so we'll like continue the effort and then go on from there. And then the next item is the year in review. And I'm turning it over to Clerk Diamond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's requested that we do kind of a year in review for the planning commission to see what's been happening, where we're at, and maybe some other city improvements and processes that are relevant to the commission. So I put together just this one page here, acknowledging our new commissioner, how many commission meetings we've had. We've had 7 meetings in 2024. The Commercial Business District Subcommittee held a total of 9 meetings, some of them in 2023 and some in 2024. And the next one would be the building permits that are issued in the calendar year 2024. We do them in fiscal years, but putting those together, the city staff and planning commissioners have reviewed and approved 8 building permits, including 2 new structures that have dwelling units in them, an airport hangar, a couple of greenhouses, a couple of additions, and 1 dock. Those are reviewed administratively by staff, and usually one of our commissioners, or always one of our commissioners, has approved them as well and initialed off on the review. We haven't had any variances or conditional uses that have needed public hearings. So just a little highlights on developments in 2024. There was the new Seldovia Village Tribe Health and Wellness Clinic, which has finished construction and is now open to the public. So that was a building permit that did go through the city. And the city has now connected 3 new structures to water and sewer. So just to kind of apprise everybody that we are moving in that direction. The CIP plan was reviewed by the Seldovia Planning Commission and was adopted by the City Council on November 25th of this year.
And then just a moment, I just wanted to let the commissioners know that this is on page 174. So,
175.
oh, sorry.
And then we have the Safe Streets for All program, which we did, the commission did participate in a joint work session with the council on that. And that is a joint venture with the Kenai Peninsula Borough. And they will be scheduling, we have scheduled an additional work session, which will be on December 16th for that. That'll be a joint work session with the city council prior to our December 16th council meeting. So hopefully the commissioners can make it. And Commissioner Forsberg will be the last thing we ask of you. For December 16th, there will be a joint work session with the city council for the Safe Streets for All program is going to give an update. So
Yeah,
if you could turn your mic on there.
I was also going to mention, we still have enough to make a quorum. You have enough? Okay. Because I was going to offer, if you needed me to stay on a little bit longer, I could. But if we got plenty, then
Well, we'll get to that later on in a moment.
Oh,
Yeah, but if you want to stay on, we welcome that.
yeah, I know, but another 3 years, I don't know. I think I'm working on 8 years, I think. I was looking at some of the old paperwork and it went back quite a few years. Anyway, yeah, whatever it takes.
Okay. Thank you. So that, the Safe Streets for All, I know the commissioners are very interested in the pedestrian pathways and other alternatives to how to improve our infrastructure. So that will be on December 16th at 5 p.m. And that will be the commission and city council. And then I included just some synopses from our other reports on the Jackalope Bay dock and the septic lift station and raw water transmission line that are included. And under upcoming and continued commission business, we have the 2014 comprehensive plan review and update to align with community wants. And there was an ask of the commission to fill out kind of a comprehensive an audit and provide your comments. So I have additional copies of those for the commissioners that have not returned those yet. And hopefully that will help with our plan review and update going forward. And we'll continue the review of our building and zoning permit codes and applications. And we'll probably once again do a review of the land use management plan. And then I do have on here commissioner vacancy. And we wanted to thank you, Roger, for your service. And we will welcome you to stay on until we find your replacement. And I did include the public notice that we put out a couple of days ago for soliciting another Seldovia Planning Commission member. And I will note that Commissioner Ryan and Commissioner Kroll's terms, they will be reappointed here shortly for another 3-year term because their terms are up in December. So those will go forward to council unless you guys have any objection. Just wanted to thank everybody. I know it's been a year and I think we've done some really good work. I don't know if City Manager Gagel, if you have anything else to contribute.
I would just add one thing about the upcoming and continued commission business. I was invited today to a workshop with the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation in Anchorage next week for AML regarding business, what do they call that?
With the building codes?
Yeah, building code review and discussion. So I'm looking forward to attending that and I wish I could take you all with me.
I might skip out on the clerk's conference and attend that as well for that hour.
Should be good.
Oh, hey, this is Allison. I can't remember what I was going to say, but since I am not a city resident, if you have people applying that are residents, it probably would be better for them to be on the board than me. But I've enjoyed my time and I'm just thinking it's more appropriate.
Well, we'll keep you if you're still willing.
Okay, yeah, I'll still be, but like I'm saying, it's just if there's more residents,
Mhm.
I think they'd have a higher standing.
I think that lady that just left would make a great. Oh.
Yeah, so we will, if Commissioner Forsberg, if you want to stay on, we will advertise for somebody else. If you want to remain on, we can talk about that.
Yeah. Like I say, I know, especially during the winter, there's times when people can't get here or whatever. But yeah, I'd stay on until we get some other people in.
Okay.
If that will.
Great.
And then I guess the next y'all have talked about the city offices may be closed during the week of December 9th because of your meeting elsewhere. So,
Yeah, and it should still be open for the most part. There just might be some minor
Okay.
closures because it'll be limited staff. So if they have to step out or if something
Okay.
comes up. But for the most part, the office should still be open.
thank you. And then are there any comments from the public?
I don't believe so.
Okay, and any additional comments from the commission? On any subject, this is just we're just going through the last couple of items before we adjourn the meeting.
I did have one. I want to take credit for talking to you about joining the commission. I want to take that credit, that you're doing an excellent job. Very thorough. I think you're doing really good.
Thank you, Commissioner Forsberg, for that recruitment.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to thank Liz for this package. Very complete. I can see why it wasn't ready at a time. I'm 2 hours different time zone of you. So sorry about being impatient. But yeah, that land use table. I didn't really look at that earlier, but it looks great. It's nice to see that. Thank you.
And that'll be the draft that we work off of going forward. Just wanted to get to enough of a point where we could have enough to put into draft form. So any comments on them as you read it forward, please send them through and they can be incorporated in future copies of it.
And then our next meeting will be on January 8th.
And yeah, I did want to hold the commissioners one more time because the first Wednesday in January is January 1st next year. So we will not be holding that regular meeting. So the choice would be to do it on the 8th or the 15th. I put down the 8th as kind of a default option, but I'd be looking to make sure we have quorum for that meeting. If not, we could do the 15th.
Does the 8th work for everybody? Mr. Commissioner says yes. Commissioner Forsberg said yes. Allison, Commissioner Ryan, is the 8th okay for you?
Yeah, yeah, should be.
Alrighty. Thank you. And
15th.
okay. Alrighty. Thank you. And then everybody's favorite agenda item, adjournment. No. So we'll move to adjourn.
We get a motion to adjourn, but Commissioner,
Or can I have okay, I'm sorry. Can I have a motion?
Did it?
Okay, I'm making a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
And we don't have to vote for, and so
Unless there's
we
an
are
objection.
adjourned at 7:50 PM. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan.
Good. Nice to see everybody.